Artlist.io.
Get down in the car, one time give it all, bust it open hard, let me see you drop. Get down in the car, one time give it all, bust it open hard, let me see you drop.
Music licensing reimagined.
I fucked up this Russell, yeah, we hustle, but the oh my I fucked up this Russell, yeah, we hustle, but the oh my what is my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for being on. This is Jared and Nate over at the Ecarriercheck show. We've got a good show today. We're just talking, FMCSA stuff. They came out and are putting down some guidelines, some exposed illegal brokers. We'll talk about that and give you my opinion, which, this is an okay situation, but I think there could be more they could do, and we'll talk about that. And then, honestly, we want to talk about the next 6 months, where we're heading, what we're doing. We've got some cool things in the pipeline, so we'll be talking about that. Obviously, any questions and answers, anybody's got a Q&A, let us know. Yeah. But Nate, let's break it down. How was your week? Who'd you help? Because you were on the phone all friggin' week.
Yeah.
You're on the horn constantly, man.
Well, it's rained probably every day this week, which Jeez, I'm not sure if I like that.
I know.
I feel bad for you guys that are golfing. But no, I've been helping a lot of freight brokers this week with prospecting. Prospecting those shippers, prospecting those carriers, and making sure that they're vetting properly, reading our data. I think that's Dan. What's up, Dan? But yeah, that's kind of been my week. Rain and freight broken, just trying to help them, vet their carriers and find some prospects.
Yeah, I love
It's been a good week, though.
I've talked to several different carriers, more so not so much. Obviously we're talking business and what are they doing with sales? What are they finding carriers? Things like that. Yeah. But it's been interesting to talk to them, how's the market? Are you doing good? Are you doing bad? Is it kind of in the middle? Obviously, you're starting to see some of those quarterly reports coming in from LTL carriers, and obviously people are down a little bit, right? I think we're right in the thick of this, and you're starting to see some, that consistency of revenue is probably going to come down a little bit.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm sure, over the next 6 months, guess what? Everybody needs more shippers. Yeah. Everyone needs more revenue, right?
Right.
But I think something that's really important that we talk about here, we're going to break down the last 6 months. Hey, what's up, Ryan? What's going on from Kansas? There you go. Now you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, what's up, brother? How are you, man? It's good to have you on today. But, I think the one thing that people need to remember, the next 6 months is going to be a grind, right? Yeah. Economy's not the greatest. Rates are still crap. Brian's friggin', insurance rates are through the roof, and even maintenance cost. Yeah, I'd be curious if Brian knows this. Do you know what your maintenance cost is? Percentage of your business. Is it 7%? Is it 12? I don't. Is it 20? It'd be interesting to know. And in that maintenance, don't consider fuel in there. Fuel's its own expense because it's probably one of your highest, right? But I think it's really important that as we're talking to brokers, recognize that most likely their business is either even keel or, right there. Now, there are some brokers that are just killing it. And the only reason why they're killing it is because they take action into their own hands. They keep calling. They stay consistent. They keep going. They don't play this poor me, what the hell am I going to do?
Yeah. That seems to be one of the things I deal with the most, or not even deal with, just trying to help people get through is, Nate, I've been calling for 2 months, what's going on? Yeah. Haven't gotten a bite. It's definitely a stressful situation.
Yeah. We sometimes I almost feel like sometimes we're just, we're almost like a confidence coach or a motivational coach. Right. People just need to keep their head up. Yeah. And they got to keep consistent.
Right. Yeah. And you know what I mean? Like sometimes those shippers, it's all about timing. You know what I mean? So average 5%.
5% of your maintenance costs. What was it before? Before kind of the inflation side of things. What was it before? I'd be curious. Was it 2 to 3? I knew you knew. What percentage is your fuel too? I'd be kind of curious about that as well. Obviously you're staying in the good country right out here in the Midwest, so you're not dealing with California fuel. But I'd be curious of where that's at as well.
Right.
But boy, I tell you what, how important is it during times like this, during challenging times, you're not getting about 3%. Nice, good job. How important is it to keep your head on right?
Yeah.
You used to work with kids, mental health.
Yep.
When people got down, how would you coach them through that? In the mental health world?
Yeah. You definitely want to hit on the positives. Reflect on the times they were down, and let's build that confidence of how did you get through that situation. Same with the freight broker. How did you get through that rough month?
Yeah.
You had a good month this month. The last month was not very good. How'd you get through it?
Right.
It's good thing to reflect on that because it will happen again.
Yeah.
It's just how it goes in this industry, and that's how it goes in mental health.
In life as well.
Right.
Just you're dealing with it.
Right.
So we're breaking down an article today. FreightWaves pumped out an article. Obviously, FMCSA issued final guidance to expose illegal brokers. And there's just a couple things I want to hit on. And I'm a terrible reader, so take this for what it is. Fuel is 30 to 35. Yeah, I can imagine. So they put out some mandates. This is really around dispatching. And I've got some thoughts on this, but I want you to at least hear what the FMCSA released yesterday. Okay. So it says the FMCSA intended this term, in any exercise of discretion, choice, or decision-making on agents' parts about which motor carrier to assign a load to. If a bona fide agent represents only one carrier, it will assign all loads it sources to that particular carrier, and thus no exercise of discretion is necessary, and there's no dispute that the agent is not a broker, right? So if he's got one, right?
Right.
However, an agent representing multiple carriers should be careful to structure its agreements to avoid the possibility of allocating traffic. The scope of these agreements and the agreement's compliance with the terms of the agreements are key factors in the analysis of whether such an agent may be qualified as a bona fide agent under the regulatory definition. Man, I tell you what, I could read that 14 times.
That's a mouthful.
And I don't know what the hell that just said. You know what I mean? I literally could read that. What a disaster. But then it keeps coming over. It says, however, if the agent agreement's required to source the same type of load for both carriers without geographic restrictions as described above, it could not represent both carriers without registering for broker authority. Okay, this is something I kind of understand here. Because any load assignment would necessarily require the entity to choose between the carrier and would therefore constitute an allocation of traffic, right? And then the last one, it says, but the SBTC asserted that by the FMCSA making clear that the entities hold themselves out as dispatchers cannot avoid having to obtain a broker's license unless they work under geographic and commodity principles as the agents outline. This is effectively a death blow for unlicensed brokers calling themselves dispatchers. Okay. I got a few thoughts here.
Okay.
Number one, there are a few dispatchers that we've met that are truly salt of the earth. They're not out there robbing and stealing and doing all this stuff. They're running a legitimate business and helping carriers
doing it the right way.
It the right way, right? Okay. There's also, the other end of it. There's that same situation with brokers and carriers as well.
Right.
There's the other end of the spectrum on any case, right? Now, should dispatchers that want to represent multiple carriers have to get a broker's license? In my opinion, I think they should.
Okay.
And it's more so, full disclosure though, I drive and definitely don't let grass grow. I'm not surprised. I bet you do, Average. I love that, bro. I'm such a fan of that. It's like, I don't let the grass grow. Yeah, you're not a Swift driver just going 64 down the road. It's fine. I get it. They have these governors. You see the trucks out there and you pass them and they'll get better fuel miles. Well, what do you do?
Yeah.
I'd be curious. What fuel miles do you get too? I'd be curious about that. But anyway, here's my only thought is I do believe dispatchers should have to get some dispatchers or brokers. Yeah, I do think that dispatchers should have to get some level of licensing in order to become, involved in the industry.
Yeah.
To just jump in, they can jump in and jump out too fast, right? It's almost like dating versus married.
Right.
There's a little bit deeper of a level, right? There's some dispatchers, I love them out there. We help dispatchers, right? But on the other end of things, here's where I think, I believe this is one issue that they're dealing with, right? I think that, in my mind, I think the FMCSA is saying, we're going to get rid of these dispatchers because they're the ones doing all this double brokering. And I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think what the FMCSA, and if, for those of you who haven't seen this before, is, how this works, how we sat in brokers this week and saw it, is, these people call in, right? And the brokerage that we work with, obviously, there's a little bit of, they work with our site, but, they don't even have a conversation with the person. Hey, what's your MC? And they'll give them the MC. They look at our risk radar and immediately say yes or no before they even have a conversation. Right. And on our system, honestly, this truly that if it's a high risk, carrier, just get rid of them. Right. But let's say that they hired that guy. Right. So this guy just called in as a carrier that the FMCSA allowed to come in. Right. Okay. So then if that brokerage would have given him a load, he would have went into his brokerage authority, which they have. This isn't a money thing. Dispatchers just don't have the cash to get everything. Right. This is why I don't think the problem is solved with handling. Should there be guidance around this? Absolutely. It's no different than college football. Anyone watches college football, the friggin' craziness with NIL, the craziness with everybody transferring. There needs to be. This can't just be anarchy. There's got to be some guidance. Right. Or it's just gonna get out of hand. Right. There's got to be guidance with
some sort of protocol.
Right. The FMCSA needs to figure out they've got to get deeper with when they're looking at one truck, one warning shows as a high risk though. More so, that's an interesting thought. One truck, one warning. It's more so if they don't have inspections. If they don't have any inspections, you've got that challenge. This is kind of interesting because Brian he's an owner operator, right? And so it's one of those things that you take into consideration, right? Now I'd hire Brian all day. If we had step tech business, let's just go. But that's also some of the part. But I do think that the FMCSA needs to put regulations around people that are registering to become a carrier. And then, with our side, obviously we see, that they registered, suppose we have a Sprinter van. They probably went to a friggin' junkyard and got a VIN number off there. They need to do they need to go, if you want to become a carrier, if you want to become a broker, I think there needs to be a deeper function. If a driver wants to be a hazmat, I don't know if Brian's a hazmat guy or not, but if Brian wanted to go get his hazmat license, guess what? He has to get deeper to be in this space. And I think that's what they need. I think they need better routes.
No, I definitely see
better restrictions. You know what I mean?
I like that.
Because it's not the dispatcher that's calling that I'm dealing with double broker loads on. It's some random dude that has no inspections, shows a Sprinter van, and it started with Glendale, and that's kind of the fun, right? But it's one of those things. I think there needs to be deeper roots to get into this industry. In my personal opinion.
No, I agree.
Let's go from dating to married.
We just have so many. I like that. So we just have so many headaches, and I think this could help with some of that headache too as well. So definitely agree. Definitely a tough situation that the FMCSA is going to have to work through. Oh, it's dirty waters. It's definitely dirty waters. There are some one end to the other, Brian. It's a good point. One truck, one warning. But it's definitely one of those things where maybe the situation needs to become, they need to become Ecarriercheck certified, right? They need to become FMCSA certified. You need to stand next to your truck, next to the VIN number, and it needs to be, and you have to be able to text them a code. Now, will scammers get away with stuff? Yeah, of course. If I put this system in place, they're going to figure it out. If I do this, they're going to do this. Scammers are everywhere. It's just our world has gotten really small really quickly. And so,
You've got a lot of people working abroad, and
Yep.
and there's some challenges. We've got some issues, and the FMCSA has got their I don't envy them.
Right.
They got their work cut out here.
Yeah. So obviously this isn't going to change overnight. So what should people maybe start doing in order to protect themselves?
Well, first and foremost, in my mind, you need to be using some kind of risk radar, or you're going to get into some crazy. I think the most I've ever seen was a triple broker, where it went 3 dimes down the road.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen more than 3. I'm sure there's some friggin' nightmare stories out there. FaceTime. Yeah. I honestly, I think that people need to be using some kind of guidance, rating system in my mind.
Right.
But I'm with Brian. Let's take this back to 1950.
Yeah, let's get more personal.
Let's actually see somebody, some sort of live video. I agree. If you're an independent dispatcher, why couldn't you just become an agent for a brokerage and be legit? You honestly could, Ryan. That's an interesting point.
So a couple of things that, Ryan, maybe I don't know if you have any feedback on this, but we obviously talk with some dispatchers, and they, for some reason, want to start there before getting into broker.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I hear.
Yeah. You hear that a lot. People, I think what happens is a lot of people just Google how to make money in trucking, or, things like that. And, there's obviously money to be made. A dispatcher, makes a percentage of your load, or will be flat rated. Right. And I pay my accountant to do my books. Right. No different than some of these carriers. They'd rather just drive. They don't want to deal with all the phone calls.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah.
There just needs to be more regulations. And I know the FMCSA is working on those regulations.
Yeah.
I do think that you need to go from being dating to being married, right? Just a little deeper in.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. I think if the FMCSA is watching, let's get a meeting together.
Yeah,
have
them give us a call. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's have them Ecarriercheck certified. We'll build some software for them.
Jared's got ideas.
I do, man. I could go all day.
Yep.
But they got to be verified. I'm with Brian. Not everybody can go to Washington and, show up and say, hey, here's where I'm at, and here's my truck. That there needs to be a better vetting process at the beginning of registering with the FMCSA, and truly make sure. Something that, and I would think that they would see this. I mean, that's where we get the data.
Yeah.
But I mean, when we see carriers that have like VINs shared with like 6 different companies.
Yeah.
Now, let's say that Brian, for instance, we'll use Brian here, mainly because I like to pick on him. It's Friday. But let's say that Brian buys a step deck from another company, and that was just vetted or just inspected, and those things like that. There's some legitimacy there. Right. That's fine. But I shouldn't see a freaking cargo van inspected by one company in 1 month and it's another one by a week later. There's some weirdness that we see. They just want to pull loads off load boards and then charge you to do that. Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing. Use me and abuse me, sir. Honestly, that's the one thing. If you're a dispatcher out there, there's better ways to find loads than the load boards, in my personal opinion.
And we got a couple good ways of doing that.
We do, and we've talked about this. In fact, we have one of the better dispatch live call videos that I've seen. We've talked about dispatchers in general, and it's just building relationships with carriers, those freight brokers, and really just trying to help. But I do think you got to go from dating to married. I won't beat this dead horse anymore. But
that's fair.
If the FMCSA does watch, I doubt they do, but if they do, call me. I'm sure I can help. Or I'd be on I'd love to be on like some kind of committee.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of fun.
I love that.
I would too. Maybe that's something I should put on my 6-month plan.
Yeah. I love that.
We're talking about what the next 6 months look like for us as well. Just because I think it's important that, you guys are a community, we grow together. And so we want to talk about what we're doing the next 6 months. We really have kind of 3 things that we are grinding, pushing to do. And Nate, I'll let you kind of take the ball here and run with this a little bit.
Yeah. So, obviously Jared and I we're pretty good about having these meetings. Jared likes to call them stand-ups. So what those stand-ups do is we talk about our goals for the week, right? Yep. But we actually had that talk this morning about what's the last 6 months going to look like. Yeah. So we sat down and talked about these 3 things. The first one we came up with, grow our community. I mean, everyone that's on today, you're part of that community, and we thank you for that. We want to continue to grow, and we want to continue to bring people together in this industry and learn and grow the companies. So that's part of the growing that community. And then a good part of us doing that is going to conferences, TIA.
Yeah.
So I encourage people out there that if you're able to do that, get signed up and let's meet each other. Have a cold one and catch up.
Yeah.
Throw it up.
Honestly, and I've never had a beer with Tire Killer. I'd like to with you, Brian. If you come through Western Nebraska with a load, hit me up. I'll take you for the best friggin' burger and beer you've had in Western Nebraska. Yeah. But I think relationships in person just are so much deeper. Yeah. There's so much. Maybe I was born in the wrong era, but there's something to be said about relationships. Just and I'll tell you what I mean by this. Every week I go to the Y, and I go to the Y fairly often enough. And one of my goals when I walk into the Y, and that you would think the obvious goal is I'm trying to get better shape, or
trying to be like Michael Phelps,
trying to swim it out or whatever it may be. But one of my goals is to say hi to somebody. Just start some kind of conversation. I think people are losing the skill of conversation.
Yeah. Just a simple hi, how are you? How's your day kind of thing.
How's your day? I've been sitting in the sauna with this cat last 3 times, weirdly kind of coming in. And, the guy just needed to talk. And so, I love building relationships in person. So if you're in a populated enough area where we're not, by the way, we're in the middle of nowhere, that's a whole nother kettle of fish. But, join your transportation club, your local transportation club. I've gone to a couple of the events that Denver has. The Denver Transportation Club is insane. Wonderful little community. We should probably pop over there and say hi to them sometime. It'd be kind of fun. We're only 3 hours away from Denver. But I think that's important that you grow by relationship. I'll let you keep going. Right? That's just my 2 cents.
And to add to this relationship is on us. We're going to continue to build our relationship when it comes to, posting social media. One few things that we talked about is doubling it up, right? Not getting too aggressive, but just put more facts out there, more, updates with Ecarriercheck, just getting you guys more familiar with what we're kind of doing. We're in this together, so we want to make sure we're all on the same page. Yeah.
Then we'll keep doing sales calls. We'll keep doing content that makes a difference and helps people out. So.
Right. And that's part of us trying to give back to everyone. Let us know how we can help you. That's part of us wanting to give back. So, Jared helping out, sales calls. I've gotten a weird amount of phone calls of saying, how Jared's phone or, sales calls have truly helped them.
Right.
So we did give back a little bit. You helped them out. So we want to continue to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So definitely good point there. And we talked about, connecting on LinkedIn. If you get on LinkedIn for sure, how's your day going?
My choice of
Yeah. I love this guy, man. A few other things too we did. What else did we put here?
We're going to pull some updates across the board.
I'm trying to read your hand right.
You're okay.
Pulling updates.
I ride like an Egyptian pharaoh here. But I think something that we went quite a while without doing an update. We pumped out a huge update. It looks nice. It's a lot more easier to use. And we have 2 more updates coming. Right. And they're big updates. We're definitely trying to punch above our weight as a homegrown tech software logistics company, right? But our ultimate goal, and this is why the FMCSA is going to call, is we want to have more data than the FMCSA, and we're there. I'm beta testing it already. So this is something that I'm super jacked for. People always say, well, the phone numbers and emails, all this stuff that's not right. We're working on that issue. So we're excited about pulling that one across the finish line. We have another one coming, and really it's more around our community. How do we get our community more involved with our software and just make it more of a 2-way door instead of a 1-way door?
Yeah, and I got a couple of guys that in my head already that have called me this week just giving good feedback. Lee's one of them. I don't know if Lee's watching, but I appreciate your feedback. We definitely wouldn't be where we're at with without a lot of you and that feedback. Yeah. So it truly does help.
Yeah, it's everything. Yeah, you know what I mean. So yesterday we were at that place for a burger and a beer. Yeah, makes sense. And it was interesting. The guy was telling us, from a previous conversation that he had a deeper intention than what the first conversation was. And when I got back in the car with my buddy, I was like, I don't think that's what he meant at the very beginning, or I didn't take it that way.
Yeah.
And so my hope, my goal for the next 6 months is I'd like to be clearer to the audience, to you, to I want to show I want to be more intentional with how I communicate.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can be clear so that I'm not, we had that conversation 6 months ago with this guy. And then to sit, at the Burger and Beer, maybe the beer loosened him up.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, I just think that, I need to, for myself, I look at that situation and go, man, I misread that. And, it was just the way he worded it for me didn't mean what it meant for him.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm going to try to be more clear. I'm going to be more clear to you guys, to this, and that we can keep pulling that across. So we're excited about these updates coming. We're excited about growing our community. And lastly, Nate, give us a rundown, because this is important to you.
Yeah, and everything that you kind of mentioned too is part of that is growing ourselves, is being more clear with that communication, or whatever that may look like. But growing ourselves, we want to be able to, take care of ourselves, and to add to that, to help take care of everyone else, that are subscribed to us. We want to make sure they have the best, the platform out there they can utilize.
Yeah.
And they understand that we're here to help.
Personally, I'm not really trying to grow. Honestly, I'm trying to comfortably survive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, that's such an interesting way of putting it.
Yeah. That
just because we live in such a chaotic world, it's just comfortably survive and not deal with some. It's really loud out there. It's very noisy.
And that's why it's important to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's so much stress in this industry.
It is.
Man, if I wrote down every time, or had a dime for every time someone called me saying they're stressed, I would be pretty well off.
Yeah.
But, you got to take care of yourself. You got to take those mental breaks. You got to, go for a swim or a burger and a beer.
Yeah.
Take that time for yourself. Reflect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was so funny. I help some younger kids that are just right out of college, and I just kind of, we just have good conversations.
Yeah.
And this kid just graduated. He's a mechanical engineer. Really good kid. Love this kid, actually. He's just wonderful. I've watched him grow up, and now he's, 23 and trying to take on the world.
Yeah.
And he's applying for some kind of big boy jobs.
Oh, wow.
Like big boy jobs.
Yeah.
Right. And
Hey,
got him loves. Hey, later, man.
Thanks
Good
for being
seeing
here,
you. But he's applying for some big boy jobs, and I said, well, what gives you the advantage over these other guys that have 5 years?
Yeah.
And he goes, I plan on reading a book this year. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he goes, well, statistically speaking, if I read one book a year, that's more than most people do.
I believe it. Yeah.
And it was just kind of this interesting thing that he had that mindset. If I read a book, I'm going to have more knowledge from that book than anyone else that he's competing with.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if he'll get this job. I don't know if reading a book is going to get him the job, because he has no experience.
Right.
He's a handful. But I love his mindset that I'm going to grow myself. And because a lot of people don't, we're going to keep going.
That's a really interesting question. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm sure that's a question he'll get on that interview. What's going to make you so different than this guy with 5 years experience? Yeah. You know what I mean? So I kind of like where he's going to help expand that knowledge on his end. Yeah. Best of luck to him. I really hope he gets that.
Absolutely.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. I think it's really important for anybody, in my personal opinion. You need to go walk. You need to be in some kind of exercise for 30 minutes a day. I think it's important to keep promises to yourself. And that could be as simple as just not eating after 7, or that could be as simple as getting up earlier, or not pushing the snooze button. Keep the promises to yourself. If you were going to ask me what self-confidence is and the definition, it's keeping promises to yourself consistently over a time, a period where you start to feel comfortable with your body. Right. So this is an important aspect. So we're going to grow ourselves. We're going to also hopefully take the lid off. You and I can only grow Ecarriercheck as far as our capacity allows us. And if we don't continue to grow our capacity, we're just going to stay right here.
Right.
So I can't take over the FMCSA. They're not going to call me.
Yeah. Should.
They should. But, it's one of those things. We're just going to take ourselves. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep pushing you, and hold people accountable. And
We'll just control what we can control, and For things we can't, we'll
Yeah.
work through together as a
absolutely.
team. So.
'Cause there's always something silly.
Oh yeah.
You know, there's always something silly.
So.
Nate, I enjoyed the show today.
Yeah, I appreciate for the people that stuck around. We didn't have Shaggy and Frank on today. Shaggy's dealing with some illness, but we'll definitely get those guys on. One way or another.
Yeah.
They're very entertaining and they're full of knowledge. So
Oh,
we
man.
got to have them on.
You can grow.
But definitely go check out Frank's page and Shaggy's page.
Yep.
They both got good pages going on. They're constantly live, which I love, and they're great people. So go check their pages, follow them, like them, send them flowers, whatever. Go to ecarriercheck.com, sign up for a demo. Email me if you want to get together. Let's grow together.
Yeah.
And
Let's get through the next 6 months together.
yeah.
What did he say? I want to comfortably survive.
Yeah.
Let's comfortably survive together.
Yeah.
So,
I love it.
guys, have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on.